start the session?
Yes, please, Nikita ma'am. Good
Thank
evening.
you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. So, good evening, Dr. Ajay Jain sir, Dr. Saurabh Jain sir, and all esteemed member of Team Research Foundation of India, and our distinguished subject expert, Dr. Chanchla Jain ma'am, and all dear participants. I am Nikita Khandelwal, the program coordinator for the FDP on first-hand experience on SPSS introductory module. As we all know that it's could be possible only through the collaborative effects of Research Foundation of India in association with BPIT and with the generous sponsorship of JHERF, ARGA, Edu Academic INC. As we all know that today it's marked the day one of this program. And in this program, I heartily welcomes you all on behalf of Research Foundation of India once again. As we all know that Research Foundation of India is strictly working for the social upliftment and higher education quality and Indian research promotion in the form of events like international national conferences, seminars, workshops, symposiums, and other activities. Research Foundation of India works for the integration of intellectual ideas across the globe to fulfill the thrust of innovation of humanity, and it is concerned with improving the educational process by encouraging scholarly inquiry related to education, practical application of research results, and RFI is working for research and development for higher education. It has signed MOU with top universities of India also. Research Foundation of members are faculty researchers, graduate students, and other distinguished professionals with rich and diverse expertise in education research. Research Foundation of India does not take any financial sponsor from any government body. It has organized 1,000 plus international conferences and workshops, FTPs, symposia, etc. all over the world. Now, RFI is having 87 chapters in India and 18 chapters in Asia and other countries and categorized in 5 board: West, East, South, North, and Central Zone. So with this, now I would like to request our today's subject expert, Dr. Chanchla Jain ma'am, to come on the platform. But before she came on the platform, I would like to share her experience journey with you all. So good evening, Dr. Chanchla Jain ma'am. Ma'am is an author, research expert, and academician with an experience of more than 11 years in management and commerce as an assistant professor. Ma'am is a co-founder of Urja Counseling and Training Indore. Presently, Ma'am is working as an assistant professor in Prestige Institute of Management and Research Indore. Ma'am is also the coordinator of IQSC at PIMR and also a research expert and trainer. She has conducted many more workshops, FDPs on SPSS module, research paper writing and analysis through our programming. Recently, ma'am has completed one research project related to medical field, which has been presented before the Central Ministry. She has rich experience of more than 10 years in research, and with this, she has more than 42 research papers published in various scopus, national and international journals. Ma'am has also presented research paper in more than 20 conferences and even won 5 Best Paper Award at JIMS, Delhi Pacific University, Udaipur, and 3 in Prestige, Indore also. 4 research scholars were pursuing their PhD degree under her able guidance. Ma'am has also guided more than 500 plus students in their major and minor research projects, and as an author, Ma'am has also written a book on crucial problem of our society, along with a co-authored title of society as Atmahatya Kyun. So with this, we are truly luckiest one that we are having opportunity to listen the truly esteemed and highly expertise in her field, Dr. Chanchla Jain ma'am. She is renowned for her precision and expertise in her area. So with this, I would like to invite you, ma'am. Now the platform is yours. Please hold the footpress.
Thank you so much, Nikita ma'am. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you're completely audible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. First of all, before starting the session, I must say, or I must be grateful to the RFI team for always giving me a chance to deliver the knowledge, whatever I'm having into field. especially in this particular FDP, which is based on the SPSS. So thank you, Ajay Jain sir, Saurabh Jain sir, entire RFI family. Nikita ma'am, thank you so much to you too for introducing me with all the friends those who are available on this platform. Now, starting, I think without delaying, I will just come to the topic of the day today. It's a 7-day FDP, right? So thank you so much everyone for showing your interest to learn SPSS. As per the agenda, today agenda is I'm going to discuss the basics of SPSS. But before talking about the SPSS, I'll talk a little bit about the research field, because analysis is one of the component when we are talking about the research, right? So SPSS will help us for the analysis of the data. But what is the need? Why we need to do the analysis? So this is what we are understanding firstly through the conceptual aspect, and then we will move to the SPSS, and then we will see today the basics of how we can create variables, how you can import data, what extra the perform, what I can say functions we can perform using SPSS, that I'll explain, right? So I'll share my screen. Through these slides, I'm going to discuss the research, and then means all the 7 days the pedagogy will be almost similar. I'll discuss. Am I not clear? Is it? I think someone has messaged in the group.
Ma'am, it's not visible.
What is not visible, Nikita ma'am?
Your screen, ma'am, is not visible.
Sorry, screen is not visible right now.
You cannot see me?
Then we can see you.
I haven't shared, ma'am. Nikita ma'am, I haven't shared yet.
Okay, ma'am.
I'll share the screen. I'll ask.
Okay, ma'am, sure.
Yes. So I was telling this thing that the pedagogy for the entire 7 days will be, I'll discuss the conceptual aspect of whatever the particular topic is for the day. And then through SPSS, we will see how we can apply those concepts in SPSS, right? So now I'm going to share the screen, and then I'll take your note that whether the screen is visible or not, right? So now I think I've shared the screen. I hope it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
So Premlata ma'am has posted that I'm not audible, or maybe I'm not clear. Is it something like Nikita ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I not clear?
No, ma'am, it's completely clear and visible and audible too.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much, Nikita ma'am. So once I will talk about the basics, I want to tell you the purpose of this FDP. This FDP, the purpose is what? As this is the software-based training. There you need to try to involve yourself to these particular online platform. I'm expecting whatever I guide you here through my knowledge, I'm expecting that you people need to also perform the similar thing at your end using the SPSS, right? So for the purpose, we have shared the link on the WhatsApp group. I hope you all have downloaded the SPSS, right? So I start the session with the quote, which is given by Aristotle. This quote will tell you the purpose of this activity. The quote says, "Tell me, I will forget. Show me, I will remember. Involve me, I will understand." So the purpose is very simple, that through this activity, as it's a SPSS introductory module, but the purpose is we want to give you the hands-on experience on SPSS. So I'm expecting you to please perform along with me, so that you would be able to recall the concept even afterwards when you are using or maybe working on the SPSS environment, right? Starting with the agenda, in today's session, I'm going to cover the research, means introduction to the research. I'll talk about the variables and measurement scales. Then we will see various data analysis techniques. Then introduction to the SPSS. Then what are the rules we need to keep in our mind while defining a variable in SPSS. And lastly, how we can import data sheets in SPSS. So this is the agenda for the day. So from the agenda, I'll take the first agenda, that is the introduction to research. So once I will talk about research, I think may I know from you people that what do you understand by term research? Anyone? I hope I'm audible. Please be interactive through these sessions.
So identify the problem, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not knowing who is interacting. Sir, may I know your name?
Syed Najibullah, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So, sir, can you tell me what you understand by term research? Yes, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Janvi ma'am.
Ma'am, I guess research is something in which we need to find something new. For example, there are certain findings which have been done previously in our subject domain, and there have been papers written or been published. From that findings, like we read the papers and all, we need to find out what else has to be added upon in that field, in that particular domain. So, as per me, that is research. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Janvi ma'am. I think Janvi ma'am has said very correctly what is the research about, what is the research according to her. One, I think, answer we have received on the chat also. According to the Premlata ma'am said, research is something that we give new ideas or new ideas from the existing one is known as research, right? So I think you all are knowing the term research. Some people are generally saying research is nothing but replus search. That is searching again and again. So searching in a quest of a new knowledge is a research, right? So the very simple meaning is that sometimes it happens why we are searching again. So as Janvi ma'am added this thing, that when we talk about research or when we talk about any particular area, in any area generally with the time, there are so many differences or so many different variability or the variances or what I can say, newness can be added in a particular field. So the previous persons, those who have explored that particular field, maybe they have not, obviously then when that particular thing was not available at that time, so how they can explore that, right? So whatever they have explored, we need to understand what type of things they have done in that particular field. And then from that particular point, we need to understand that now what new extra thing we can find in that area, which can help the stakeholders of that particular area, right? So this is the purpose of research, or this is research, that is searching again and again. Maybe for searching the new thing, we are doing this particular thing. This is known as research, right? Now talking about the components of research. So here when I say components of research, so I think those people who are belonging to the social science field, because as I am from the management side, management is one of the part of social sciences. So generally I will talk about the components from that point of view. But if you are from some other domain, other discipline, it is like maybe not all components, but many of the components still will be maybe the part of your research area, right? So always when we talk about the research, study or research paper or maybe the thesis writing or something or dissertation or something, the very first thing is the introduction. Introduction means firstly we need to have the problem area. In any particular field, we are trying to identify what can be the problem that we can observe, or maybe using the literature, we can identify that in this particular area I can work upon. So that way we are deciding a tentative title, right? And using that title, whatever the keywords are lying or coming in that particular title, we need to discuss all those in the introduction part, right? So that way there will always be a link between those particular keywords that will give you a conclusion that why we are going to do this study of what the things has been already done or concluded by the previous researchers. So that way we are writing the introduction part, right? So that the other readers or the readers, those who are reading our work, they can get an idea that what this study is all about, right? Further, the very important component of the research study is the literature review. Literature review is, it is like reviewing, means from name if I say, it's reviewing the literature. So in whatever field we are conducting the study, in that particular field, we need to see what are the things or what type of study has been carried out by the previous researchers, so that we can get an idea that maybe in the form of objectives we can find what type of objectives were be formulated and covered by the previous studies. Then we can find what type of hypotheses were developed and tested by the previous researchers. We can go for the understanding of the research methodology part, that what type of research methodology was or being followed by the previous researchers. We can identify which type of tools were used by them to collect the data. Then what type of tools were used by them to analyze the data. What were the findings of the previous study. So literature review is like a thought. It's like a guiding, what I can say, it's like a map which can help you. That way you can understand that what was done by the previous researchers, and that will give you a clue that now how you can go ahead and you can continue in the same field, right? So this way, this is the work, or this is the importance of the literature. Generally, the next component we are generally writing is the objectives. Few people are generally writing the rationale also. Rationale generally can be covered in a literature review. Rationale meaning is very simple. That means this will generally writing that why we are conducting so and so study, right? So being what is the purpose of conducting that study, that is the rationale, right? After that, certain questions you can raise in the literature review only, that according to your topic, what type of questions you want to raise and give answers of those questions. Those questions you can write down in the literature review part also. Using those what I can say research questions, you will formulate your objectives, right? After formulating the objectives, you will go for formulating the hypothesis part, right? So hypothesis is generally known as the assumptions or tentative conclusions, right? Which you want to test using the data. So this can be in the form of null and alternative hypothesis. And then further you need to write about the research methodology part. Research methodology is it is like a blueprint. Blueprint means it's like a map. When means it will give you a clear picture that how this study will be going ahead, and how means if other readers are referring your study. So looking at the research methodology part, they can get an idea that what type of things you have followed to complete this particular study. So in this particular part, we are talking about what type of study what type of study is this. Then you are talking about what type of what I can say sampling method you have used. What is the sample size? What is the data collection tools you are going to use? Then what are the analytical tools or techniques you are going to use? So this way, these are the things you need to mention in the research methodology part. So this is a kind of guide for us, or kind of blueprint for us. This will guide us further. So once again, if I say till introduction to the research methodology, this will be a theoretical framework. Means this will be a theory part or conceptual part of your study, and all the things will be linked up to the previous things, right? Further, you need to talk about what are the data collection tools you are going to use. Maybe this can be a primary data source, or maybe you are using the secondary data source. In those sources, which tool you are going to use to collect the data. So it is depending upon your study. Data can be collected from the primary sources or maybe from the secondary sources, depending upon the nature of your study. Further, we will talk about which data analytical tools or data analysis tools you are going to use to analyze or to test your set or develop a formulated hypothesis. So you need to talk about whether you are whether you are using the parametric test or non-parametric test. Then you need to analyze the data, and after analyzing the data, you would be able to jot down your findings of the study. So you need to jot down all the findings, and you need to conclude your study. You will give you the total or overall overview of your study in the conclusion part. And then suggestions are always expected, because if you are conducting any study, so we generally people are expecting what suggestions you want to make for the particular stakeholders of that field. So if suppose I am conducting a study related to the marketing field, so stakeholders can be the customers or maybe the company or manufacturer, those who are making that particular product and something like that. So your suggestions should be in line with all these things, so that they can help out to the people or the stakeholder of that field, and that way they can get an idea, right? Then talking about the limitations part. So here you need to discuss about what is the limitation, what is the constraint for your study. So constraints can be anything, right? Maybe mostly generally cited or written limitations can be like time can be a very important constant, because generally it is related to that if sample size, if population size is very large, so we will not go to enumerate each and every unit. So we need to decide upon the sample size. So that way, if sample size is restricted, so whether you are able to conclude your results for the entire or the mass population or not, then you need to talk about. So in that purpose means in that case, if sample size you are taking, so that means you want to save your time, right? So that is the time can be a constant. Then budget can be a constant, because generally for the whole population we cannot go and to collect the data. So constant cost can also be one of the constant. So likewise, you need to identify. Apart from that, there can be some other constants also. Like in case of maybe region, maybe I am conducting a particular study in MP region only, or maybe a particular city only. So that can also be one of the constants. Similarly, I am using the non-probability sampling method. So likewise, whatever the limitations you are feeling like that these can be the limitations of my study, you need to always jot down those studies or jot those limitations in this particular section, so that other person, those who are referring their study, can get an idea that these were the limitations while conducting this kind of study, right? And lastly, you need to always give credit to the whatever studies you are referring to conduct your study. So in this reference section, you need to always jot down all the references of the studies, those who have or those who have referred for conducting your study. So there is a particular, what I can say, reference type or reference methods available, whether these methods can be APA, MLA, then IEEE, anything. So you need to see in which particular field you are writing your study or conducting your study. So pertaining to this study, there are various research reference methods are available. So accordingly, you need to refer those methods for referencing purpose, right? And always please give means like I can say this thing, that always try to cite or try to jot down each and every references which you have referred. This is a kind of credibility. You always need to give gratitude to the persons, those studies you are referring, right? Sometimes it happens we are citing some studies we are not citing. So this is depending in the journal you are submitting your paper. So accordingly, you can see what type of reference citing they are accepting. Whether those who have cited only those references you need to quote, or maybe means it happens. Suppose I have referred 15 or 20 papers, but maybe I am citing only 10, maybe. So it is like I can cite only 10, or whether I have whatever I have downloaded and read, all the 15 I need to cite or write down in the reference section. That I need to be very much clear about, right? So that way, these are the few most important components I discussed. Looking at those components, you can get an idea that these all components simultaneously can help us to complete a research study, right? Now,
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, the reference part or the citation part means how many papers I'm citing. Like I'm citing 20 papers, so I'm just writing out only 10 papers that I've cited. So, like, how I'll be knowing that how many papers I need to write down in the citation part or in the reference part?
Every paper, whatever you are citing, you need to always write down. Whatever the author names are coming, so accordingly, their study you need to always put there in the reference section.
Ma'am, even if I'm not quoting something from their paper, then also I need to write it down.
That is what I said, ma'am. You need to see, usually journals are accepting the studies according to whatever you have cited. Suppose I have cited 50 papers, right? Because paper length is sufficiently large. Because nowadays the pattern is very different. In the introduction part, also people are citing these studies, right? In the literature, obviously they will cite obviously the previous work. Apart from that, when we talk about the discussion part, so I think discussion part is also very important, which can be coming there in the finding parts. So finding parts means I am writing down my findings, right? But I need to discuss my findings in context to the findings of the previous authors. So if suppose my hypothesis is rejected, but same hypothesis is accepted somewhere. So I need to write down that thing. I need to give the studies. In those studies, that particular hypothesis is rejected or accepted. So that way, whatever number of studies I'm citing or author's work I'm citing, I need to give credit to each and every one and need to jot down their reference in the reference section.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Further, I'll talk about means I'm showing you one of the shape which is very, very common and known. I think being a female, everyone knows this particular shape, but it is not like male are not knowing this shape. Everyone knows this shape, right? This shape is a shape of anyone? Which shape you can understand looking at this? Anyone? Which shape it is?
It's a old. I think you have to change the slide now. We are still on the old slide.
You cannot see my second slide?
No, ma'am,
It's
no.
components of research study.
Okay, okay.
Funnel.
Funnel.
Just a minute. I am stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
I need to show you. I hope now it's visible.
Yes, ma'am, yes. Visible.
Yes, ma'am. Now you can see, I think you will have identified this. This is a funnel shape, right? Purpose of taking this shape here is because I want to tell you the importance of literature review, right? Literature review work is like of funneling the things, of funneling the literature, right? How? Generally, when I talk about literature review, it is very obvious. It is a vast thing, right? But I need to narrow down these things. How? Suppose I am taking a tentative title. So that title, suppose I'm saying the customer satisfaction towards maybe online or maybe the student perception towards the online classes, right? So if I'm saying student perception towards the online classes, meaning is very simple. I'm saying what students are thinking or perceiving for the online classes. But if I will look at the title is very broad because I have not mentioned in which particular context, in which particular city I'm studying this particular thing. So that way, literature review will always be vast, right? So what you need to do, you need to narrow it down. So you need to go in the literature, you need to do deep dive you need to do in the literature. And you need to extensively and exhaustively, you need to refer the literature, right? And then you need to identify the gap according to the area you want to explore, right? Say, for example, if I'm saying student perception towards online classes, right? In that case, I need to find out how many of the studies were conducted previously in the online study or education sector, right? So in that case, I need to try to identify most number of studies. I need to try to read those studies, and then I need to write the research gap. Research gap meaning is what I'm going to cover through this particular study which I'm going to conduct and what has not been covered by the previous researchers. That type of gap I need to mention. After mentioning the research gap, we need to go and we need to take the help of the research question. We need to write down the research questions, right? So research gap will help you out to raise certain number of questions. And then using that number of questions, you can formulate your objectives. Objectives will always be the base for making your hypothesis or for developing your hypothesis. So this way, this is a top to bottom approach. Means you are starting from the literature view, it will end up on the hypothesis, right? So this particular approach we always follow to come to the hypothesis part, which starts from the literature review part, right? Now, there is a very important term which is variable, because if we want to understand that how any software works or how we can do the data analysis, right? You always need to understand a term that is variable, because in the case or in the research domain, we are always talking about the variables. So variables means nothing but these are the entities which varies, right? Which are not constant, are known as variables. So variables are generally expressed in the form of numbers. They can be in the form of even categories also, right? So we can say variables are the entities which cannot be, which can be expressed in the form of numbers or categories, which are not constant. Or the other definition can be variables are the characteristics of any object are known as variables, right? Broadly, if I talk about, although there are various type of bifurcations available for the variables, but broadly, if I talk about variables, we can majorly divide the variable into the two parts, which is dependent variable and independent variable. So for making or for understanding dependent and independent variable, if suppose I am showing you this is y equals to a plus bx or y equals to alpha plus beta x, right? So I think many of us know this particular thing, because in the maths we have all, I think we all have studied this particular equation. This is a straight line equation, right? Where we can say y is dependent, a is the intercept or alpha is the intercept, beta or b is the slope or the coefficient of x, and x is the independent variable. So that means if I want to find any value of y, I need to keep the value of x here, because a and b are the constants, right? So this constant, if I say b, the constant value of b, I will multiply with the x, and I will add it to the a to get the value of y. That means the value of y is the value which is depending upon x, and x is a variable which can accept any value because it's independent in nature. So any value I can keep here, but according to the value of x, the value of y varies. This is known as dependent variable, that's why, and x is known as independent variable. Fine, everyone? May I proceed?
Ma'am, this slide is not visible.
Still?
Yes.
What about the others?
It's visible. It's visible.
Not getting it visible or not?
It's visible. Visible.
Visible. So, ma'am, I think you need to pin my screen. The persons who cannot see my slides, you need to pin my screen. You need to find my name. It will be available in the.
Now it's visible. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, talking about other name for x and y is also known as outcome variable, and x is the input variable or the predictor variable, right? And y can also be the response variable. Now, for example, there is example being an academician. Suppose I want to see that what are the variables which can lead the performance of the students, or what variables are impacting the performance of the students, right? So, suppose I have taken the variable performance and I have taken that hard work and intelligence are the two things which are impacting the performance of the students. But if you will look at these two variables, these two or maybe three variables, because the variables are hard work, intelligence, and the performance, right? So if I talk about these three variables, so all the three variables are generally looking like these are the variables which are, means you need to operationalize them, means you need to write the definition that how you're going to measure these variables, right? If I talk about hard work, so usually we know hard work you cannot measure it is like directly, right? But if we are talking about the performance of the student, so I can say hard work is nothing, but it is the we can say number of hours studied by the students can be the hard work, right? Intelligence means the IQ level of the student can be the variable which can help you to measure the intelligence. And the performance is what? Performance means what is the score or marks got by or attained by the particular student is known as the performance, right? So that way we can say these three things we can use to these two things we can use to measure the performance of the, but always it is like it is these two variables are not impacting only the performance. There can be some other variables also, but might be possible I am considering these two variables only. But what some other variables can be? So maybe some other variables can be the gender and the social education of the social what I can see status of the students, right? So economically, how the students' status is can be the SES we can say, socioeconomic status, right? So might be these two more variables which can impact indirectly the performance of the student. So I think gender is like male and female. Socioeconomic status may be the student belonging to a very strong financial background, or maybe medium, or maybe low background, right? So that way, reason is very simple, because if a person is having the high socioeconomic background, so that means that person can have the access to the more number of resources, and maybe that way he or she can prepare that particular subject in a better manner. So maybe this can be one of the reasons his or her performance is better than the other students. So this way we can say these two variables are nothing but these are the moderators variable, because I have not included them in the study, but still they are impacting the relationship of these dependent and independent variables, right? So moderator variables are those which are not present, but still they are impacting the relationship of the independent and the dependent variable, right? So we can say the dependent variable is the performance in the previous example, independent is the hard work or intelligence, moderators are the maybe socioeconomic status of the student and the gender, right? So this way, I think one more example you can find, designation and the salary. So whether the designation is impacting the salary of the employee, moderator variable can be the gender, right? It is very obvious. You cannot eliminate gender from the employee. It is obvious if employee is working, maybe it can be a male and female. So this thing will always be present, and this is moderating the relationship between these two variables, is known as moderator variables, right? Now, coming to the next concept, which is about the measurement scale. So, measurement scale, I think you people are already knowing. Measurement scale
Ma'am,
is like,
the screen is not visible.
what about others?
It's visible, ma'am.
I think it's my humble request from all the participants. If my screen is not visible, please find my name in the participant list and tag my screen, right? So this way, I think you can see the slides, whatever I am presenting. Fine. May I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So now I was talking about the measurement scales. So measurement scales meaning is very simple. When I talk about measurement scales in terms of statistics or in terms of research, usually there are various variables which we can easily measure, right? Like suppose I will ask you how I can measure the weight of the student. So I think we know how to measure the weight. There is a weighing machine, and in that case, we know that this particular person is this much kg or this much kg, something like that. So we are knowing this thing, that how to measure the weight. Similarly, if I am asking you how to measure the height, so I think we are also knowing, using the yardstick available for measuring the height, using that measurement tape or something, we can measure the height of the person. But there are still some variables which you cannot measure in this way. Means if I say, if I want to measure the satisfaction level of my students for my subject, right? So I think I cannot say the student satisfaction is 100%, or maybe percent maybe I can say maybe, but I cannot say. I am not knowing the proper unit of the satisfaction. So I cannot say it's 1 kg, 2 kg, 100 ml or something like that. So it is not correct, right? So when we are talking about measurement scales, these scales are the scales which are providing us the facility to measure the variables which you cannot directly measure, right? That means the latent variables are the variables which cannot be directly measured. So to measure them, we are using the measurement scales. So as you can read in the slide, measurement scales are used to measure the socio or the psychometric property of the variables, right? So these are used for the quantification purpose, right? As I said, If I talk about the satisfaction, I cannot quantify it, right? But using the measurement scales, you can quantify them, right? This is the properties of the measurement scale. So if I talk about, can any one of you tell me or name the measurement scales? It's nominal, ordinal,
ranking, and ratio.
yes, it's nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. These are the 4 scales, right? Using that, we will bifurcate variables, right? So if I say measurement scales, I can broadly divide measurement scales into the 2 categories: categorical scale and the continuous scale. Categorical scale is the discrete scale. Continuous scale is the metric scale, right? So categorical scale we can divide into the 2 categories: nominal and ordinal, and continuous we can divide into the remaining 2 categories, that is interval and ratio. So we will learn all these 4 one by one, starting with the nominal scale. So nominal scale work is very simple. This scale we are using for the identification purpose or categorization purpose. So when you are interested to categorize something, you are using the nominal scale, right? If suppose in my class I want to identify, I want to divide my students, and how many of the students, those who have the CMET score, because in our college there is a particular examination using that we are taking the students in the campus, right? So suppose I am saying how many of the students whose CMET score is greater than suppose 150, and how many of the students whose CMET score is less than 150. So that way I am having a proper parameter to dividing them, right? Or maybe I can say how many of the students are male and how many of the students are female. So that way I can categorize them. So this way, if my purpose is to categorize only, I can use the nominal scale. And if, as I said, for the identification purpose, so I have given a category, this is a male category, this is a female category, or these are the students whose score is greater than 150. These are the students whose score is less than 150. So that way I can easily use these categories to identify them. So this type of scale is known as nominal scale. One example I have quoted, which is for the gender, which is a very simple example if I talk about. So gender meaning I am dividing my audience or my respondents on the basis of their gender. Maybe these are the male, these are the female. So these number of male are there, these number of females are there, right? So that way, purpose of nominal scale is to only categorize a particular variable, right? Further, talking about the next scale, which is the ordinal scale. Ordinal scale purpose is only to order the things. But in the ordinal scale, this scale is having the properties of its previous scale, that is the nominal scale. So always the order of these scales will be like nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. So as you are progressing from one scale to the next scale, all the scales will having the qualities or the properties of its previous scale, right? So when I say ordinal scale work is means it is having the quality of the nominal. You can categorize there. Apart from categorization, you can also arrange those categories either in the ascending or in the descending order. This is the work of ordinal scale, right? So as we know, height is a kind of numeric variable, because height we are measuring in terms of numbers. I can say 5 feet 6 inches, something like that. But when I say I'm saying that this is the middle heighted person, this is the tall heighted person, this is the short heighted person, that means these are the categories I have picked, right? So I can categorize the people tall, medium, and short category. Also, I can arrange this category in the ascending or descending order. So tall, medium, short, or short, medium, and tall, like that. So the proper ordering is possible there. There we can use the ordinal scale, right? Suppose you are asking a people to rank a product, right? So you are asking to rank the products or something. That is again will be the part of ordinal scale. You are giving or asking to rate a particular thing. That will also be a part of ordinal scale, right? Then the next scale is the interval scale. Interval scale is having the properties of previous two, that is categorization and the ordering. Apart from that, it has its own property, which is there is an equal distance in the categories, right? So as I say, suppose if I'm saying what I can say, temperature, because I think temperature is a very, very simple example to understand this. But in the case of research, we can use this skill in many other places, like to measure the perception, attitude, etc. also, right? But I'll try to explain you this skill using the example of temperature. So if I say, I think we all have seen the thermometer, right? So we know what is the work of thermometer and what temperature scale does for us, right? So as I say, for example, I think we have seen, suppose I am saying 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. So I think we are knowing this type of what I can say indications are there on a thermometer, right? So the work of thermometer is to measure the temperature, right? And we know when we are measuring the temperature, so the what we can say, how I can understand that this is the temperature. So maybe we can say when suppose I am saying it is very cold, means I can say this is one of the property of temperature. When I am saying it is very hot, it is the second property of the temperature. So these are the two properties which are telling me or which are helping me to feel the temperature, right? So when I say temperature is scale, it is very easy to understand, 0 to 5, 5 to 10. That means categorization is possible. Maybe I am finding the cities with the temperature. So I can categorize them, that the cities with the temperature, suppose 15 to 20, 20 to 25, like that. So I can categorize those cities. I can arrange them also in a proper order on the basis of highest and the lowest temperature, right? Apart from that, there is an equal difference also, because I have taken like suppose 10 to 15 or 10 to 20, 20 to 30, something like that. So proper difference is also maintained there. But there is one drawback of the interval scale, and the drawback is very simple. This scale is not having the actual zero. Absolute zero is not having in the interval scale. So when these temperature scales were developed by the scientists, what they did, arbitrarily they have assumed that this is a 0 point, 0 degree Celsius or 0 degree Fahrenheit, something like that. So that way these scales were developed by them. So we know this thing when we are saying zero. If I say the person is having the zero income, so it is very easy to understand that this person is not earning anything. The income is zero, right? But when I say temperature is zero, temperature is not actually zero, because at the zero, one of the properties of temperature we can feel, that is cold, right? So arbitrarily that is zero, but actually it is not zero. So this is the what I can say lacuna of the interval scale. This is the problem with the interval scale. So that way you can find certain examples that have put of the interval scale, like attitude, motivation, intelligence, score, personality test, etc. Right? Now talking about the last scale, which is the ratio scale, it is very important scale, because this scale is having the properties of all its previous scale, right? And apart from that, whatever is the drawback there in the interval scale, that is also overcome here in the ratio scale, which is the actual zero or absolute zero is available there. So example which I have already given, income is zero. So actually it is possible the person is not earning anything. So the person's income is zero, right? So it's really or actually zero. So if I want to summarize all the four scales in a particular table, you can find there are four parameters, four properties: identification, that's categorization; magnitude, that is the order; then equal difference, and the absolute zero. So if I talk about all the four scales, you can find the highest scale is the ratio scale, which is having yes for all the four properties. Interval is saying yes for only three properties. Ordinal is saying yes for only two properties, and nominal is only having this particular property. So this way, this is the what I can say concluding remark on the measurement discourse. Further, talking about when you need to go for the data analysis. So data analysis starts from the objectives. As I said, you need to define your objectives properly. Objectives will give you or help you to identify the variables. Using those variables, you will formulate your hypothesis. And once you have formulated your hypothesis, using the variables, you will collect your data. You will prepare a questionnaire or the instrument, and then you will going for collecting the data. So once you are having the data in your hand, you can go for the data analysis, right? Now, if I talk about how or what are the ways of formulating your hypothesis, so hypothesis can be formulated in the three manners. First can be the difference type of hypothesis we can make. Second one is the relationship type of hypothesis we can make. And the last one is the prediction kind of hypothesis we can make. If I talk about different type of hypothesis, so here are the type of variables you need to understand that we will understand in the upcoming days, right? So in this category, we are generally keeping the tests which are t-test, ANOVA, MANOVA, mandatory test, etc. So using these t-tests or using these tests, generally you need to make your hypothesis in the difference type. Means there is no significant difference kind of hypothesis generally we are making. In the relationship, you need to first understand which kind of variables you need to take, and then which tests you can apply are Pearson, experiment, rank correlation, point biserial, and chi-square test generally we can use to find the relationship between the variables. Next one is the prediction. For the prediction, also you need to first understand which kind of variables you are having, and then you can apply regression. In regression, there are large variety available, like linear, ordinal, multinomial, apart from that logic, etc. So there are so many different regressions available which can help you to predict the dependent variables, right? So this way, this is the expressions of hypothesis. Further, if I talk about the analysis techniques, so I think I'm not going in a deep. I'm only talking about broadly, because once we will talk about the test, there I'll discuss all these. I'm just saying we can divide the techniques into the two categories, parametric and non-parametric. Some of the tests falls under the parametric category, some of the tests fall under the non-parametric category. Now, how to just choose a statistical test? So there are multiple ways of choosing a statistical test. You need to have the idea about how many variables you are having, how many independent variables you are having, how many dependent variables you are having, on which scale you have measured your variables, what is your purpose, whether you want to compare the sample and population, whether you want to compare sample and sample, whether you want to compare population and population, and then you need to see what type of hypothesis you have formulated. So these all will give you the answers of selecting a appropriate statistical test. Now I'm coming to the main part of this FDP, which is talking about the SPSS. I think all of you already know SPSS is a short for statistical package for social sciences, right? This is a product which can help us to analyze the data. So if I talk about SPSS, usually SPSS means initially when this particular product was launched or software was launched in the market, this was launched by the SPSS Incorporation. But after that, in the year 2019, it was taken care by, or it was what I can say, acquired by the IBM. So now IBM is now the SPSS is the product of IBM. So it is known as IBM SPSS. The purpose is very simple. SPSS is generally used for the statistical data analysis purpose. Now talking about what kind of processes we can perform in the SPSS. So firstly is the checking of the data. Once you are having your data, you need to check whether the data is having any missing values, so means if there is any missing values. So how you can identify missing values available when the data size is very large. So using the frequency distribution, you can identify that thing, or you can arrange your data in ascending or descending order. That way you can check your data. Next is you can make changes also in your data. So you need to firstly identify where that error has occurred. At the entry level means once you have entered the data, there is this error is occurred, or maybe interpretation part or the misunderstood part of the by the respondent. Means whatever questions you are asking from the respondent, whether they have not interpreted it correctly, or whether they have misunderstood whatever you are asking. So you need to identify that thing. Accordingly, you need to make changes in your data, right? Further, you can go for the decoding of the data. So suppose if you are having any particular data available, say for example, if I'm having the age, right? Suppose I directly ask the ages of the people. Suppose it is maybe person has written 36 or maybe 20 or 25. So in that case, if I want to convert that data into the categorical form, or maybe I want to decode that data, that I can do in the SPSS. There is a way available. Using that, you can transform the data. So if possible, totally I'll discuss that also. And then next one is the analysis part. So analysis, there is a dedicated menu or tab available, which is named as analyze. Using that, all the statistical tests almost listed there that you can use and perform to analyze your data. Further, if I talk about the view of SPSS, generally the view of SPSS is like this, which is very similar to Excel, right? So I think I'm not talking about all these here. May I shift there to the SPSS section now? Yes. Any confirmations?
Yes, ma'am, but we don't have the
Ah.
SPSS software.
Yeah. So how many of you are having that SPSS available with you? Yes. How many of you are having it? 1, 2. What about remaining? 3. I think 4, 5.
I had a licensed version for 1 month. Now I don't have it.
Sorry.
I have downloaded a licensed version. It was valid for 1 month.
Freely available. Getty ma'am, it is not freely available.
Ma'am. That I took it only for 1 month, and now I have downloaded, but I can't use it because it's not there.
Sorry.
No, it's not there. Like it was only available for 1 month. Free wala.
We have previously have downloaded it.
Yes, ma'am. Free version.
So ma'am, I think once you have downloaded it, you cannot now download it because it is only available for 1 month, right? Once you have registered your mail ID on the same mail ID, you cannot using that same mail ID, you cannot download. Apart from that, in the same device also you cannot download it now. So you need to procure it if someone is having that license version that you can procure. So many of the people are generally using the cracked version also. So if you are in contact, you can connect and can procure it.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So now I will share my screen for the purpose. I think any questions people asking me? Someone is raising hand or no? Kavita ma'am, do you have any questions? I think 6, 7 people are having the SPSS. Maybe they have raised their hands for that purpose, right? May I proceed? I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sharing now my SPSS screen, right? I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Loaded.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So there you can see this is the interface of SPSS. The interface is very, very similar to the Excel. We all are aware, I think, about the Excel. We all are working on Excel, so we know how the Excel looks like. SPSS is also very similar. It is the look of SPSS is very similar to the Excel. So there you can find in this particular way, it is similar to Excel, but the thing is, in Excel there are multiple worksheets you can enter in a workbook, right? And here in the case of SPSS, you can find at the bottom left, you can see my cursor, you can see my mouse pointer where I am rotating it. It is showing me there are only 2 views. These are the 2 displays or 2 different windows available in the SPSS only. You cannot enter new sheets here. So this is the first one is the data view. Presently, the color you can find the different from each other because whatever you will select, the color will change. So it is maybe yellow or orange type color you maybe see on your screen of my screen, right? So this means that means present is the data view is visible to you. This view is used for us by us for storing the data. Means whatever data you are having in the Excel or any other format that you can bring in the SPSS environment, and that data will be displayed here, right? If you want to do a manual entry of the data, that also you can do in this data view. Talking about the next view, which is the variable view. Now you can find this is the variable view, which is little different from the data. Here you can find there are certain what I can say heading of the column with the name, type, width, decimals, label, etc. So this meaning is this variable view will allow you to define your variable. If you are entering your data manually, In that case, you can define your variable. Say, for example, I'm coming here. If suppose I'm entering any value here, suppose I entered 6, right? Now, I come to this. You can see I entered the value in the second column. So, what it did,